Imagine waking up one morning and noticing a strange tingling in your toes, a sensation that feels like tiny pins and needles dancing across your skin. At first, you might brush it off, thinking it's just because you slept in an awkward position or your shoes were tight the day before. You might even shake your foot or wiggle your toes, and the feeling disappears for a while, giving you a false sense of relief. But what if this tingling isn't random? What if it's one of the first signals your body is sending to tell you that something is happening deep inside, something that needs attention before it becomes serious? That sensation is often the earliest sign of neuropathy, a condition where the nerves that carry messages from your brain to your body and back start to malfunction. It begins quietly, subtly, and most people ignore it because it doesn't hurt in a way that demands immediate attention. You might not even realize that it's a warning sign because your mind is focused on daily life, work, chores, errands, everything except your feet, but your nerves are trying to communicate something important. As this tingling persists over days, weeks or months, it can start spreading to other toes, and the sensation can change from pins and needles to a mild numbness. This numbness is deceiving because it makes you feel like nothing is wrong, when in reality, the nerves are slowly losing their ability to transmit signals properly. You may notice that you don't feel your toes as clearly when you touch them, or that walking barefoot doesn't feel the same anymore. Even stepping on something small, like a pebble or a tiny piece of debris, may not register the way it used to. This is not a harmless change. It's your body telling you that the nerves in your toes are under stress and need care. People often ignore these early signs because they think numbness is just part of aging or being tired at the end of a long day, but it's much more than that. Sometimes the tingling can be accompanied by other subtle sensations like a mild burning or an unusual warmth in the toes, especially at night. You might wake up in the middle of the night noticing that your feet feel strange, or you might find yourself unconsciously rubbing them to try to make the sensation go away. The truth is that these signals are your nerves asking for attention, and the longer you ignore them, the more likely they are to progress into something more serious, affecting your balance, walking, and overall foot health. Even minor movements can start to feel awkward because the nerves aren't sending the correct signals to your muscles. You may notice that your gait changes slightly, or that certain shoes suddenly feel uncomfortable without any apparent reason. All of this starts with that first tingling, a small but important signal that should not be ignored, because recognizing it early is the first step to protecting your feet, your nerves, and your quality of life. The next symptom you might notice is a subtle, creeping numbness in your toes, a feeling that starts almost imperceptibly but slowly grows over time. You may not even realize it at first because it doesn't hurt, and that's precisely what makes it so easy to ignore. You might notice that when you walk barefoot on the floor, your toes don't register every texture the way they used to, or that stepping on a small object doesn't cause the usual reflexive reaction. That disconnect between your toes and your awareness is your nerves signaling that something isn't right. The small nerves in your feet are responsible for carrying messages from the ground to your brain, helping you balance, sense pressure, and detect pain. When these nerves are damaged, even slightly, they fail to send those messages accurately, and you experience a dull, muted feeling in your toes. You might think that it's just fatigue or aging, but this gradual loss of sensation is one of the earliest silent signs of neuropathy, a warning your body gives before more obvious problems appear. Numbness can be unpredictable at first. Some mornings you might feel it more than others, and sometimes certain toes are affected more than the rest. You may notice that after sitting for a while, when you stand up, your toes feel oddly disconnected from your feet, almost like they belong to someone else. That sense of detachment can be unnerving, and yet most people dismiss it because it's subtle and doesn't cause pain immediately. Over time, the numbness may spread from one toe to several, and you might find that small injuries, like a blister or tiny cut, go unnoticed because your toes no longer provide the usual sensory feedback. This lack of awareness can be dangerous, especially if you have diabetes or circulation problems, because unnoticed injuries can worsen quickly and become serious infections if left untreated. You may also notice that tasks you once took for granted, like walking on uneven surfaces, feel slightly more challenging. Your balance might feel off, or you might find yourself adjusting your stride without realizing it. This happens because your toes play a critical role in stabilizing your body, and when their sensation diminishes, your body compensates in ways that feel natural but actually strain other muscles and joints. Sometimes people even notice that their shoes feel different or tighter in certain spots, even though nothing has changed, and that subtle discomfort can be a sign of changes in how your toes and feet perceive pressure. Another effect of numbness is the increased likelihood of accidentally dropping objects when using your feet to stabilize yourself or reaching for something with your toes, which can be surprising if you've never experienced it before. The numbness may be accompanied by a sense of heaviness in your toes or a feeling that they are floating slightly off the floor, which can make simple movements like bending or stretching your toes feel unusual. Even if it seems minor, this constant lack of proper feedback from your toes affects your gait, posture, and overall foot health over time. Ignoring these early signs can allow the neuropathy to progress silently, eventually leading to more noticeable symptoms like pain, burning, or muscle weakness. Recognizing numbness early gives you the chance to address the underlying causes, protect your nerve function, and prevent long-term complications. Another early sign of neuropathy that often goes unnoticed is that subtle burning sensation in your toes. At first, it might feel like warmth after a long day of walking or standing, or like your feet are overheated under your socks. You might ignore it, thinking it's just temporary, or caused by shoes that are a little too tight, or maybe even the weather. But if that burning sensation lingers, especially at night, it's your nerves quietly telling you that something is wrong. Many people describe it as a fire-like feeling, sometimes accompanied by mild itching or discomfort. And while it doesn't always hurt enough to demand attention, it's a signal that your nerve endings are irritated and not functioning properly. The toes, being the farthest points from your heart, are particularly vulnerable to this kind of nerve stress, and the small nerves there are often the first to show symptoms before the rest of your feet or legs are affected. The burning can come and go at first, which makes it easy to dismiss. You might notice it after wearing shoes all day, or after a long walk, and then it fades when you rest, giving you the false impression that it's nothing serious. But over time, it can become more persistent, sometimes flaring up at night when your body is at rest and your attention is more focused on bodily sensations. This nocturnal burning can disrupt sleep, leaving you tired and irritable the next day, and the lack of sleep itself can worsen nerve function, creating a vicious cycle. You may find yourself rubbing or massaging your toes unconsciously, searching for relief, or even adjusting your sleep position to reduce the sensation, which are subtle coping mechanisms that indicate your nerves are under stress. Sometimes this burning is accompanied by tingling or mild numbness in the same toes. You may notice that one toe feels hotter than the others, or that a cluster of toes has this persistent warmth that doesn't match the temperature of your surroundings. The sensation can spread gradually, making it difficult to pinpoint the exact origin, and that's why many people fail to connect it to neuropathy early on. Over weeks or months, the nerves become more irritated and sensitive, and ordinary sensations like wearing socks or lightly touching the toes can trigger the burning feeling. Some even describe it as a crawling or prickling heat, almost as if tiny currents are running through the skin, which is a sign that the nerves are misfiring and sending faulty signals to your brain. Another aspect of this symptom is that it can subtly alter your walking pattern. Because your toes are uncomfortable or feel on fire, you may unconsciously shift your weight when standing or walking, putting pressure on different parts of your feet. This compensatory behavior can lead to strain in your ankles, knees, or hips over time. You might also notice that your balance feels slightly off, or that you hesitate when stepping on certain surfaces because your toes are giving confusing or inconsistent feedback. While these changes are small at first, they can escalate if the underlying nerve irritation isn't addressed. Recognizing this early burning sensation in your toes allows you to take preventive steps, care for your nerve health, and prevent more serious complications from developing later on. Another subtle but important sign of neuropathy is the occasional cramping or muscle twitching in your toes, something that many people dismiss as normal fatigue or just aging feet. At first, it might be a brief twitch while you're sitting or a sudden cramp after walking or stretching, and you shake it off, thinking it's nothing to worry about. But when these twitches and cramps start happening more frequently or with less obvious triggers, it could be a signal that the nerves controlling the tiny muscles in your toes are not functioning properly. Your toes contain a network of small muscles that rely on precise nerve signals to move and stabilize, and even minor nerve damage can cause these muscles to misfire. That misfiring can feel like involuntary twitches, sudden jerks, or brief cramping that catches you off guard, and while it may seem minor, it's actually your nerves trying and failing to communicate with the muscles. You might notice these cramps when you're relaxing in bed or sitting at your desk. Small involuntary movements that are easy to ignore because they don't cause pain or interfere with your daily activities. But over time, as the neuropathy progresses, the cramps can become more noticeable or even uncomfortable, and you may start to notice subtle changes in how your toes look or move. Some people observe curling of the toes, slight changes in alignment, or that their toes feel stiff and less flexible than before. These changes are gradual, which is why most people don't associate them with nerve damage at first, instead attributing them to tiredness or wearing shoes that don't fit perfectly. Yet, these small signs are actually warnings from your body that the communication between your nerves and muscles is weakening, and ignoring them can lead to bigger issues with balance and foot function. You may also notice that your toes fatigue more quickly than before during simple activities like walking, standing, or stretching. What used to feel effortless now requires more conscious effort because the tiny muscles are not receiving consistent signals from your nerves. That can make balancing on uneven surfaces feel more difficult or walking barefoot uncomfortable because your toes are less coordinated. Some people even notice that while the cramping is happening, their toes feel weirdly heavy or slightly stiff, and that sensation can linger for hours afterward. It's subtle, easy to overlook, and yet it's one of the early signs of nerve dysfunction that is often ignored until other symptoms like numbness or burning become more obvious. Another sign that accompanies cramping or twitching is mild weakness in the toes. You might find it harder to grasp small objects with your toes or notice that your gait changes slightly without you realizing it. These small adjustments are your body compensating for the lack of proper nerve signals, and over time they can affect your posture, leg muscles, and overall stability. The twitches, cramps, and weakness are all early indicators that your nerves are under stress, and catching them early allows you to take action, improve circulation, and support nerve health before more serious symptoms develop. Another silent symptom of neuropathy that often goes unnoticed is the unusual sensation of cold or hot toes, a subtle change that most people dismiss as the weather or circulation issues. You might wake up and notice that one toe feels colder than the rest, even though your feet are covered, or that a cluster of toes seems warmer than normal, almost as if they are overheating without any reason. These temperature changes are not random. They are signs that the nerves responsible for regulating blood flow and temperature in your extremities are starting to malfunction. Normally, your nerves help maintain a balance in temperature, ensuring that your toes don't get too cold or too warm. But when these nerves are damaged, they fail to communicate properly with your blood vessels, creating these unusual sensations. It's subtle at first, and because it doesn't cause pain, most people ignore it, thinking it's nothing more than a temporary discomfort. You may notice that the temperature difference is more pronounced at night or when you're resting. Your toes might feel uncomfortably cold when you get into bed, even if the room is warm, or they might feel unusually warm while you're lying down, making it difficult to relax or sleep comfortably. Some people unconsciously rub or massage their toes to try to normalize the sensation, while others may adjust their blankets or socks constantly without realizing that the underlying issue is nerve dysfunction. This kind of symptom can also affect your perception of pressure, making it harder to notice when you're stepping on uneven surfaces or walking barefoot, because your toes are sending inconsistent sensory signals to your brain. Over time, these small changes in temperature sensation can become more noticeable and persistent, signaling that neuropathy is progressing and that the nerves controlling your extremities are struggling to function correctly. Temperature-related symptoms are particularly tricky because they can be easily attributed to poor circulation, cold weather, or even fatigue, and most people don't connect them to nerve damage. You might find yourself experiencing cold toes during summer or hot toes during winter, or even alternating between the two, which can feel confusing and unnatural. These fluctuations are more than minor annoyances. They are early warnings that the fine nerve endings in your toes are not communicating properly with your body, and that ignoring them can lead to further complications, including numbness, tingling, or pain. You might also notice that paired with these temperature changes, your toes feel unusually sensitive or hypersensitive to touch. Something as simple as wearing socks, walking on soft carpet, or brushing against a surface can trigger discomfort or a strange burning sensation, which is another sign that the nerves are misfiring. Another subtle effect of this symptom is that it can change the way you walk or stand. You may unconsciously shift your weight to compensate for the uncomfortable temperature in certain toes, altering your gait or posture without realizing it. This can strain other muscles in your legs or back over time, creating a chain reaction of discomfort that seems unrelated to your toes but actually originates from these early nerve issues. Recognizing unusual cold or hot sensations in your toes early allows you to take action to protect your nerves, improve circulation, and prevent more severe symptoms from developing over time.